is Valerie Graham, and welcome back to this episode of Natural Bliss. Today we're going to be talking about sandalwood essential oil. And buyer beware, do you really know what you're buying when you buy sandalwood oil? So for a long time, I've had my aromatherapy company, almost 20 years now, and when I first started out, sandalwood was hard to come by at that time. It is actually even more difficult to come by today. And sandalwood is one of the most well-known and well-loved scents. It's universally appealing to men and women. It's used in the perfume and cosmetic industry to scent. It's also used and loved by aromatherapists and people that love essential oils. So what's the controversy over sandalwood? Well, let's talk a little bit about the sandalwood species. There are actually 16 species of sandalwood that break down into 4 categories. Our East Indian sandalwood, we have Hawaiian, Pacific Islands, and Australian sandalwood. So those are the most popular that you will find around. The sandalwood trees have been harvested to the point of extinction in the Mysore region of India. And many people say, I only want to buy Mysore sandalwood, East Indian sandalwood from the Mysore region. Well, really, if you're buying that, I have no idea what you're buying because that really doesn't exist these days. And if you can find it, it is extraordinarily expensive. I did my research, I looked around the internet, and there are tons of people out there selling what they consider to be sandalwood essential oil from the Mysore region of India, but trust me, that's not what you're getting. They actually haven't harvested in almost 100 years in the Mysore region because overharvesting led to unsustainability and there are no more trees. They're just decimated these days. Part of why that happens is because it takes between 35 to almost 100 years to grow a sandalwood tree. Now, if you go and look and see what a sandalwood tree looks like from that amount of time, you might think, oh my God, it's going to be huge like the redwoods. It's not. It's a regular tree. They just grow very slowly. It takes a long time. So, and the other part of this is the essential oil in the roots of the sandalwood tree actually are very desirable and they yield a lot of oil. So instead of just cutting a tree down and having it grow, they take the whole tree out and they distill both the heartwood from the tree and from the roots. So now if you're not replanting saplings, you have no more trees to sustain your livelihood or to sustain that essential oil crop. Prices have skyrocketed because everyone is going back to natural fragrances and natural scents. They don't want the synthetics. But believe me, if you're buying sandalwood, especially if you're buying Mysore sandalwood out there, what you're getting is an adulterated or altered, probably with synthetics and chemicals. I'm going to call it a fragrance because it's probably not even an essential oil at this point. If the trees are planted in plantations and they are well cared for and cultivated, then you do have the ability to produce a tree that will yield essential oils in about 15 years in a controlled environment. There are many things that go into that because the sandalwood trees are parasitic, so you have to have host trees planted next to them. But if you do it correctly, you can probably get something that will be able to be harvested in 15 years. That's still a long time for a plant. Either way, I want you to use your sandalwood oil sparingly. So, Santalum album is actually the species, the Latin name for that particular species of East Indian sandalwood. People say that that is the best sandalwood that we can buy. Perfumers like it because it has a very soft and round and full scent about it. But again, you really can't get that. So you can get East Indian sandalwood that has been grown in Indonesia, Now they're growing it in Australia. So you can get it from other parts of the world, but it wouldn't be called Mysore. Mysore is specific to that region in India that was well known for their sandalwood, East Indian sandalwood, scent album essential oil. However, you can get others that were grown, like I said, in Australia. They're doing plantation growing right now in Australia, and you know, that's a great thing. So they've been doing that for about 15 years now, and since it takes 15 years to grow the tree, they're just starting to harvest that crop. So you will start to see East Indian sandalwood back on the market, but it is not from the Mysore region. Many companies do mislabel. I think they just figure everybody wants Mysore, so I'm going to label it Mysore, yet it's impossible that it really comes from there. Let's talk about, is East Indian sandalwood really better? Well, it depends on what you want to use your essential oil for. If you're using it for perfumery, then the East Indian sandalwood versus Santalum spicatum, which is the Australian version, they will have a slightly different scent. So if you need it for therapeutic purposes, it's all interchangeable. You can use the Hawaiian, the Pacific Island, specifically there's a new one out on the market recently, a New Caledonian, which I tried, which I loved. I really liked the scent. They do say that the species Yasi is probably the closest in scent to the East Indian sandalwood. So if you're really looking for perfumery, you might want to try that species. But if you're just using it to blend with a therapeutic purpose, they're all interchangeable. Like I said, I do really like the New Caledonian. That's from the Pacific Islands. What about West Indian sandalwood? Well, that's not really sandalwood at all. That comes from the amyris tree. That's not even related to sandalwood. That's a whole different species of plant. So totally different therapeutic properties. So you don't want to go there. So don't think that that's the same. So what are you actually buying? Be really careful. Look at the Latin name of what you're buying. If it's cheap, you're going to want to avoid it because all sandalwood these days is expensive, and that has to do with the fact that it takes so much wood and it takes so long to grow. And sandalwood today sells for about $1,000 a pound. So that's very expensive. If you really want Santalum album from India, you will pay for it. They do have ethically harvested. It won't be Mysore, but it will be from India. If you can't find it, then substitute one of the less expensive ones. They're just as good and therapeutically the same. And above all, make sure that what you purchase is ethically harvested and plantation raised, where they will replant, they will rebuild, they will be unadulterated. You know what you're getting, you know what you're buying. So leave some sandalwood on this earth so that our children and grandchildren will be able to smell that scent and use it. Thanks again for listening. This is Valerie Graham, and thank you to Corinne Caro and Blue Chip Marketing for making this possible. Thank you.